Good evening, good evening. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Good evening. Good evening, good evening. We'll wait 2-3 minutes. Our land revenue system is done. Oh, yes, way back. We are done with land revenue systems very. It's been 3-4 classes. So at that time, why literacy rate was lower? How do you define literacies? Then you will go with lower or higher. English education, if it is that, then obviously literacy rate will be lower because English education was never introduced in India. So it's about how you decide that indicator. Good evening, good evening. Dominant caste would mean upper three varnas, specifically upper two varnas. Or Ankush, but not very dramatically, it won't do anything. So if it's worth, if you can remember it, sure. If you cannot, it's okay. Can I skip socialist for a moment? No, you can't. Shweta, why are you asking me this question? First class or something? Because it is important. Acha. So you're asking me, is Mountbatten plan done? Mountbatten plan, what is the year? Shweta, what is the year? Mountbatten plan? Perfect. Rutuja, just come up to speed by this Saturday, Sunday, and then we'll. Don't know, sir. Okay. 1947, June. So, 2 months before the independence. So, Mountbatten plan, obviously, we will do, but not right now. June 1947. It was embodied in the Indian Independence Act. Ashe, today itself, half of the class is heavy. After that, it is not like that. What was the intention behind reforming in society? To justify the rule. Revolt of 15th Lakshmi, we should start today only. Is it necessary to remember dates and years? The ones which I am pointing out, that is for sure. Some dates have to be remembered, obviously. The ones which I am pointing out in class, you have to. I written socialist reform in points. Is it bulky to revise? What I want to do? I told you make the table, it will not be bulky. I have 5 6 emails which I have not even seen, but students have actually sent the tables to me, and they're doing a very good job into that. So if you make it into tables, it will be maximum 3 pages maximum. Today's lecture is most important. All lectures are important. Marks weightage from socialist reform movement. Again, the English utilitarian will not come out. You can get 1 to 2 questions in prelims, and you can get 1 to 2 questions in mains. So now what will you say? Dinesh, what are you looking for? Don't write that. Don't type that. Type this. Then you'll get it. Type this. Dinesh, noted? It will show my name. You don't have to discuss paper 1 and paper 2 of net. Okay. No issues, Sanskarsna. Okay. Are all pan-Indian national movements somehow connected with INC? At least first, let me reach there. I don't know what is the hurry. Pre-INC will do tomorrow. So we will do it. We will do it. Everything systematically. Is post-graduation important for UPSC? No. UPSC says no. What you have? Thank you, SME. Asha, you want to buy it? Beginner or expert, both can use it. Okay. We wait 1 more minute because we are reaching the number. 1 more minute. Is graduation enough? UPSC says you have to be graduation. After that, UPSC says nothing is enough or nothing is necessary. So there's no rule. There's certain not there. People have cleared it in their PhD also. They've cleared it in their BA honors also. So that doesn't matter. You can, Shweta, if you want to. Okay. Now, nothing till now. Okay. So yesterday we finished socialist reform movement, and we also started the rebellions. Today we have to discuss the peasant and tribal movements, and we also have to start 1857. 1857, most important discussion, most probably the causes out of which questions come quite a lot will be discussed. So most probably the time we reach to the break point, which is the before the break and after the break, the theme will change. Here we only have to discuss 3 peasant movements, which is Indigo, Deccan, and Pavana. And thereafter tribal, I've already made tables for you, so you don't have to worry there. You only have to understand the nature of tribal rebellions. Other than that, other than that, we reach halfway point of this course by today, which is 1857. 1857 means that now we are going to enter nationalism by tomorrow's class, if not tomorrow, day after for sure. And from next week, we will properly be in the nationalist zone from Monday. So we will most probably do pre-INC tomorrow and a little bit of economic nationalism. So by tomorrow, day after, Friday, we will be fully into the zone which matters, which really matters. And if students have joined me for the first time, you just have to do one thing, which is to just go through the recorded videos over the weekend and catch up to speed with regards to that. Now, yesterday we discussed resistance to Raj. And under resistance to Raj, we saw 3 manifestations: rebellions, peasant, tribal. I discussed with you is I discussed with you the rebellions part, which is Veluthampi, Kuka. We discussed all of these Rampa and all. And today we have to move one step forward to peasants. So we've already done Sannyasi, Fakir, Pagalpanti, Mopala, and Kuka, along with that Vellore Mutiny, Veluthampi, Paika Ramusi. And there are also smaller important, just to give you a timeline, other smaller important movements also which are happening across India, but these are not categorically called peasant or tribal, but they all represent a certain resistance tradition in that regard. Now we have to now start with peasant uprising. As I already told you that peasant uprising, the shortcoming was that they don't understand that colonialism is the problem. And here three major manifestations, along with one which is, so it's not major but equally important, which is called the Rangpur Rebellion. So the Rangpur Rebellion, the Pabna Revolt, the Deccan Riots, and the Indigo Revolt all represent the peasant side of the story. However, after this point, it's not that peasant movement stopped, but they are part of the larger national movement. For example, All India Kisan Sabha, the Tebaga, the Telangana. There are other things also which we'll discuss vis-a-vis understanding the concept of nationalism, because they don't fit in this pre INC period. Now, the beauty of these four is that they represent four agents of colonialism. They represent four agents of colonialism, and how basically they were targeting the wrong branch or the wrong tree itself. Or if you want to see it, they are only targeting the branches and not the tree. So, for example, Rangpur is against an Ijdar. Who's an Ijdar? What is Ijdari system related to? Very good. It is the farming out system of Warren Hastings. Pabna, Deccan Rights, and Indigo. Indigo is against planters. This is against money lenders, and this is against landlords. So as we did yesterday, I'll make one slide in which I'll add the reason, the leaders, and we can move forward with regards to that, what areas were affected. But as you can see, each of them is representing one branch of colonialism. One branch of colonialism, wherein each branch represents the way these people represented the colonialistic exploitation. So, peasant uprising, we already know that it is colonial policy, it is the handicraft system, it is denationalization, basically the concept of land revenue equals to commercialization equals to the concept of deindustrialization equals to drain of wealth. Now, the colonial judicial system and administration also did not do anything for the peasants generally, because if they went for redressal, they were already aligned with the zamindars. So it's also administrative corruption, which meant that the peasants were always under distress and always in a problematic situation. Landlord, zamindar, same thing. English word, Hindi word. Now, let's discuss the first rebellion. It's called the Rangpur Rebellion. It's again in the most affected area of the permanent settlement, which is, or the most affected area of India when it comes to settlements, which is Bengal. And the company here had already squeezed the peasants out. But here the Ijdars or Ijarardars, same thing, Ijdar or Ijardar, basically had become very, very, very brutal. And there was one Izdardar or Ijdar, which is Debi Singh, who had become a nuisance in Rangpur and Dinajpur. Nuisance. He used to beat up peasants, he used to torture peasants, he used to basically lead to so high level of taxation that famines had become a standard thing within the Rangpur sector itself, because he was really brutal. And for the same reason, when Debi Singh will become very, very tyrannical, there will be an uprising in multiple the parganas, or what we call as districts, in and around Rangpur, and they will rise under Kena Sarkar. And what will happen is that the British will have to intervene, and they will remove Debi Singh, and the Rangpur rebellion will automatically fizz out. So, whilst making our understanding clear, Rangpur rebellion, I'm here making notes for you straightforward. The leader is Kena Sarkar. Sarkar. Issue is Debi Singh of exploitation, high revenue demand, and exploitation. You can remember this much, three basic things. Rega, Pabna is a little bit different. This is against Debi Singh specifically. Debi Singh is Dar or colonial agent of exploitation, high revenue demand and exploitation. Okay. Now, second comes something which it is very close to us already, which is called the Indigo Revolt. Happens after the revolt of 1857. And we already know that Indigo Revolt is against two, three things, standard things, which we already have an idea about. So, indigo, if you remember, is a harsh crop. And the system which had been prevailing in India is called the Rayati system. And under the Rayati system, the peasant was now in a literal debt trap. He's in a debt trap wherein he takes an advance, but the yield falls, and that in turn leads to more debt. And thereafter, he will take the advance, and it will keep on creating more and more debt. And the problem with the Rayati system is that it is very exploitative. And over and above that, there is a lot of coercion in the system, which is that if a peasant refused to work on land or grow indigo, he was beaten up. There was harassment by goons or thugs, and the planters had an understanding. Planters had an understanding with the administration. Coercion means use of force, is to force somebody, coerce somebody. Now, this is a standard thing. But by 1859-60, something really changed. And the change was that by this time in the market, there's a synthetic dye also which had been developed by the Germans. And therefore, indigo had become redundant and obsolete, I will say, and useless. However, still peasant was asked to produce. Still, peasant was asked to produce. So these planters basically who will process this indigo, they are creating a lot of pressure on the peasant still to produce it. Still to produce it. Because the peasant, when he was giving indigo at a very cheap price, lower than the synthetic dye itself. But when you know that it will give you nothing, basically there was no point growing indigo now. But the planters were taking it at a very throwaway rate, so they still forced the peasant to do it. And there will come a break-even point when the peasants could not take any longer this exploitation, and that outburst will be in the form of the indigo revolt of 1859-60. We know that it was mainly grown in Bengal, Bihar. It was a dye. Indigo planters mostly forced the tenants to grow indigo. As per a contract, which is the royalty system, tenants were given a token amount as advance and were required to grow indigo at the best lands and sell the produce at a fixed price. That was the biggest issue. And when in a debt trap, you can't really do anything. Now, the planters had already fixed the amount at a what we call as at a rate lower than the market rate, and the system gave no real choice of anything else other than growing indigo in that regard. And coercive methods such as flogging means torture. You have kidnapping of tenants, their family members, physical attacks, destruction of property. All were resorted by the planters to make the peasant grow indigo. And therefore, the outburst will come, and it will come in the Nadia district of Bengal for the first time under leadership of Digambar Biswas and Vishnu Biswas. They will basically ask the cultivators to stop producing indigo, and here they will show a lot of interesting features of their protest. Firstly, they came together, the peasants came together. So if somebody was there coming, a gunda was coming to basically uh, beat up the peasant, so all peasants used to come together and they used to beat up the goon itself. Then they started to do physical and social boycott of the planter, which is that if people were going to the planter's house to work, they said that nobody is going to work in the planter's house. Let these white men and white women stay the way they are. We are the only reason why they're able to stay in India. So they started social boycott, they started physical boycott, and they also were the ones to say that very simply, we will not grow anything. We will not grow anything. And all the women, it's not that there's specific women participation. The whole family, the whole peasant setup itself started to now counter the coercive methods, and they said we will not do it, beat anything. So the point is, with Govindpur Nadia district, it was very clear that now the peasants were not going to take it. The planters sent armed men to beat up the villagers, but the villagers beat up them instead. And the cultivators in multiple places will join the Nadia district to make it a much bigger revolt, wherein they're using social boycott, and violent clashes will happen between the planters sent men and the peasants. However, the problem is that as soon as the British will appoint the Indigo Commission, they will say that we are appointing a commission which will do an inquiry. This whole movement will fizz out. Though it got a lot of coverage in newspapers, it got a lot of coverage in different forms of art, and we have the most celebrated of all, which is Neel Darpan, in which the story of the plight of the peasant was shown in a drama, wherein they were now spreading the message that the indigo planter is actually in a lot of distress. So the outcome was that they will be able to point it out to the British that this was not something they will accept further. So it will successfully free most of the tenants out of the clutches of the planters. Planters of all sections, be it agricultural labor, peasant, and sizably big landlords also participated in the revolt. Leadership provided Leadership was mostly zamindars who hated the British, going forward with the peasants and defying the planter itself. So here the planter is the problem, and there's a lot of unity, specifically Hindu Muslim unity, because when it comes to a peasant, it doesn't really matter he's a Hindu or a Muslim, because that is the most important aspect here, which is that he's a peasant. Now the Indigo Commission will be established, and the government will say that we are waiting for the report, and as per the report they banned unlawful and oppressive practices. So the outcome is the Indigo Commission, and it got a lot of support from different intellectuals also. For example, Harish Kumar Mukherjee, but Deen Bandhu Mitras, Neil Darpan play till today is considered a pioneering way of spreading the message of the plight of the farmers or the peasant itself. And even the missionaries will play a role in mobilizing people against the actions of the planters. So here the problem is that nobody really hated the British; they all hated the planter. So in our story, Indigo Revolt, you have two brothers, which is Digambar Vishwas and Vishnu Vishwas. Digambar Vishwas and Vishnu Vishwas. Issue was Rayati system. I have not discussed Pabna with you. I have only discussed Rayati, Indigo Rebellion with you. I think Gandhi also helped to revolt. No, your thinking is not correct. This is 1859, 60. When was Gandhi born? 2nd October. What is the year of Gandhi's? 1869. Gandhi पैदा भी नहीं हुआ है, and you're linking it up with this thing. 1869. This is 1859-60. 9 years before his birth, this thing happened. So Gandhiji is not alive. So randomly don't link Gandhi with random movements. As it is before 1915, you can't link any movement with Gandhi because he was not here only. He was in South Africa. So it is only after 1915 that he will get linked to certain things. He will come back in 1915, then after Champaran, then Kheda, then Ahmedabad. So please, my biggest request, randomly don't sprinkle names around. Issue Rayati system and planter exploitation. The coercive methods. Sorry. Teen Katia is a totally different concept. That is not prevalent here, but in Champaran specifically. Coercive method and the illegal ways of extracting revenue and indigo plants and outcome Indigo Commission. Popularized by Neil Darpan, Deen Bandhu Mitra. Okay. So we have discussed indigo. Anybody has indigo issue? Anybody has an issue with this slide? Outcome, issue, leader, revolt. Anybody, any issue? I'm literally making notes for you. Don't have to make boxes here. Just look at this from time to time. There is more than enough. What is Rayati system? Rayati system is the peasant producing crops on his own land rather than the planter doing it. under an advance. But again, I will not go backwards as I'm going forward. That I will not do. I presume that you understand Rayati, commercialization of agriculture, I've discussed in a lot of detail. So, can we go to the next one? UK was a democracy, then why did they not try to spread democracy in India? Again, innocent question. Why should they? You tell me. Why should they? Why should they? The author is, the drama is called Needarpan. Deen Bandhu Mitra is the one who. No, 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 Lakshmi. Just this. That's it. So how now we do dye? Synthetic dye, chemical. Okay. Now, the British were not here to do good. So don't expect good things from them. They're here to loot. So why will they spread? It is their duty. It is your duty to accept whatever I say 100%. You do it. You tell me. It is your duty to do a lot of things. You do it. You don't. So don't expect this. It's not a British duty to do it. First things first. They have are in no way the ones who are, and as it is the constitutional monarchy, which is democracy only, a little bit distorted that way, but that is not the point. Duty and all are fundamental rights, duties, and what you're talking about. There was nothing written in the Magna Carta of the British that they have to spread democracy. So let's forget that. Okay. Indigo cultivation declined. Why? Indigo cultivation will decline. Why? Because it is the worst crop of the all when it comes to commercialized crops. You tell me, why would indigo decline as a cultivation? Use your logic. This examination is based on logic. Why would indigo cultivation automatically drop? Firstly, synthetic dye came, so it was no point doing it. Over and above that, if you're a peasant, you don't want to grow this crop because it is extremely destroy. What this shows is that your what's called medium term Gajini effect is already on. It's not been 5 classes and you have stopped this. You don't know what is indigo, what is the concept of indi rayati. You don't now remember what is the issue of rayati, what is the issue with this indigo crop. So for short term period you're forgetting. So I don't know what you're going to do over a long term. So please don't do this. If you cannot remember more than 5 classes, it is your duty, as the British had the duty, to revise and come. So please, simple point is, I presume that you would know these things. Because I've already taught it, I put in the hours to do it. But again, I'm telling you, it's synthetic dye, bad crop, nobody wants to produce it. Dead trap, what else you want me from? That's the point. Can I now move to Pabna? If British not come, then how we became Democrat? Good question, Jay. Counterfactual question. We'll discuss it in the last class. Right? Okay. Now, Pabna is again Bengal. As you can see, Bengal centric because the impact is the worst there. The leaders are Ishwar Chandra Roy, Shambhu Paul, and Kudi Mullah. And 1870s it starts, but here it is not against the planter, it's against the landlord. Very high demand from the landlords, and they were using dubious methods or questionable methods to take out that. And see, the revolt was against landlords. And when the peasant revolted in Pabna, he said that I pledge loyalty to the crown and we are the subjects of the queen. So help us. Now, who gave the landlord so much power? Who gave the landlord so much power? It is the English. It is the queen itself. So now do you understand the contradiction? You understand the contradiction in the story, that they are not understanding who is the real culprit here. So it can be against the landlord, but they are not basically going to do anything because the British have created the landlord. And over and above that, The demand of the peasant was very simple, which is you remove, cessation means stop, the illegal excesses and cesses which are being dropped. They are saying that zamindari system should be reformed. They also said that we will go for litigation, which is going to the courts against these landlords, raising funds, refusal to pay rent, and it will start in the Yusufzai Pargana in the first instance. The first district which got it was Yusufzai. That is not the point. The point again is that, as you will see, Bengal Tenancy Law will be act. The Bengal Tenancy Law will be enacted, and as soon as Bengal Tenancy Act will come in 1885, it will give the tenants a little bit of rights, and this, with the support of the government, this movement will again fizz out. So the outcome is successful, but how do you call it success? That is the question. The British created the landlord, gave certain through a law, gave the peasants a certain amount of legal rights. Can we call it a success? It is a success of the British to mask their colonialism very well. That they created something, it backfired, so they came back again on that point. So Bengal Tenancy Act was a law which was passed after the Pabna revolt, which gave the peasants certain customary laws when it came to when to give that rent, how much that rent should be. You don't do have to know the provisions of this act, but it was a exact result of the Pabna revolt. So the point is that these acts are just there to quench or just give a temporary solution to a much bigger issue. So when we talk about Pabna, we're making one slide here. Now we go to Pabna. Pabna rebellion or revolt. The leaders, you can remember any two out of those, Ishwar Chandra Roy and Shambhu Pal. Ishwar Chandra Roy and Shambhu Pal. Issue high rent demand of zamindars. I'll tell you the difference between rebellion and revolt soon, because there's a subtle difference. That 1857. Wait, for right now, take them as same, but they're not same. But for this purpose, right now, same. High rent demand for zamindars, illegal dues by the zamindars, landlord based exploitation. And the outcome, Bengal Tenancy Act 1885. Can we move to the last one, which is Deccan Riots? Yes, I hope you are getting the purpose of this discussion. Last discussion like this, then we go into the most important, which is 1857. I'm just moving towards 1857. A very important discussion ensues, maximum half an hour more, and we will go into that section. Right? So we have to reach that point, and that is the most important discussion we have. Okay. Now Deccan Riots is related to again a commodity which became problematic over a period of time, and that is cotton. Now cotton, please again pay attention. A lot of you are distracted today. I don't know why. So have to be little bit more concentrating. Your issues are not aligning with what we are doing, and I can see the SMEs and my eyes itself can see you are asking waiver things. So wait, everything will be covered. Just be patient. I'll tell you the purpose of the discussion also. So be straightforward. So we have done Deccan, we've done Pabna, we've done the Indigo rights, and we've done Rangpur. Nobody has no issue there. I want everybody's assertion. Are we understanding what we are doing here? You just have to know the basic things, because nobody is going to ask you a full-fledged question on Pabna or on Deccan rights. They'll ask you on peasant revolts. I've already had that discussion with you, wherein what is the purpose of peasant revolts, why were they not successful, and what is the nature of them. Now, cotton is something, cotton is something which India was always known for. But we were known for finished cotton goods in the form of cloth across the world. But after 18 and between 18 to 1833 to 1850, we became from a net exporter, exporter of finished cloth to a net exporter of raw cotton and importer of British cotton cloth. It's after the opening up of Charter Act, then after that India's exploitation becomes more accelerated. Now, cotton which was produced in India, raw cotton, is called the short staple cotton. Meaning, when you will make a thread out of Indian cotton, it will break after a certain point and not to very, it does not have strength. And short staple cotton is not good for machines, because when the machine will pull, it will basically break the thread very quickly. And that is why 90% of all cotton supply of the world came from America. It was the USA, the United States of America, which was the 90% of all cotton supply of the world was coming from America. And between 1800 and 1860, America was the most important exporter, the supplier of cotton, and their southern states were called the Cotton Kingdom. Using slaves, they were producing tons and tons of cotton cloth, raw cotton, which was going to be exported to America to produce long staple cotton. It's the long staple cotton, which is very, very good for machines. America was the supplier. But between 1833 and 1860, they will go into a conflict over the purpose of slavery. The northern states, which were urban, which were modern, did not want slavery. On the other hand, the southern states, who are the world supplier of cotton, they said that we will not give up on slavery. And that is why between 1860 to 65, we have something called the American Civil War. American Civil War. Wherein civil war means when the same factions within the same country are fighting, called the civil war. When, for example, two states in India will fight, it's called a civil war. And what happens is that from 90% share, there will be a drop in the supply of American cotton from America. And that is why between 1860 to 65, this is considered the boom of the Indian cotton market. Because now there was no one else to produce cotton properly, it was only India. So if you will ever check, all cotton mills in India were developed during this period. And thereafter, you have exponential increase in cotton growing. And basically, the whole of the Deccan sector, from, for example, from 20 to 30% of all land under cotton, it will be a 200% increase. Half of the Deccan sector was producing cotton because cotton was in demand. And the point is that when supply goes down and demand remains constant, what happens to price? When supply goes down and demand remains constant or is increasing, what happens to price? Price goes up very quickly. Price goes up. And this 200% increase was because of prices of cotton, which had increased exponentially. However, 1865, American southern states were stopped from moving out of America. American Civil War was over. And their supply was back. Supply was back. And with the supply being back, if now give me, I'll give you an example. If India was producing 20 tons of cotton between 1833 and 60, and America was producing, for example, 2 lakh tons between 1833 to 60, between 1860 to 65, 1860 to 65, this is gone. This is not there. So India will increase it from 20 tons to take it to 100 tons, to 1,000 tons, to 10,000 tons, to 50,000 tons. But now, in 1865, India is producing 50,000 tons. And the 2 lakh tons comes back. What is going to happen to price at this point? This will be called the cotton crash. This will be called the cotton crash because cotton, now there is oversupply. Now there's oversupply. And with oversupply, now the peasants in the Deccan sector who were expecting a lot of money to come from the cotton which they were selling, they will not get it only. So the peasant does not get the price he's expecting. And the landlords, anticipating this cotton boom, had increased the rent also. So rent had increased, price went down. So the peasants had no other option but to go to money lenders. They had no other option but to go to money lenders, because they will lend the money so that they can pay the rent. But the nuisance of money lenders became so much that the peasants, after a point, said, we can't live in this type of situation. And they revolted against the money lenders, and that is what is called as the Deccan Peasant Movement, or Deccan Riots as they're called. Deccan Riots. By 1875, they were reaching their peak, and then they will die out because there will come a act which will give them relief. So increase in rent by landlords. American Civil War first fetched a lot of high prices, but as soon as the war was over, price slumped. Bad harvest will come in 1875, increased by revenue by 50% by the British government itself, and this will only lead to increase in the people going to money lenders, and this was mostly against money lenders because money lenders had become a problem for the peasant. So the riot will break out in Pune first, then Ahmednagar. What the rioters will do, what these peasants will do is they will go and ransack the moneylender's house, take the records and burn it. So they will take the debt bonds on what they had signed and they'll burn it. Moneylenders will also be socially boycotted, how the planters were, and and small cultivators will refuse to pay rent. Peasants will go for support to social reformers, in which MG Ranade and his body, which is I will discuss this. We'll discuss pre-INC tomorrow or day after, which is Purna Sarvajanik Sabha, will help these peasants. INC has still not come into existence in 1885. It will come after 10 years. But the Deccan riots will only be successful limited fashion because in 1879, 4 years after, they will get the Deccan Agriculturist Relief Act, which gave them legal remedies to counter unreasonable demands. So again, you can see a legislative intervention comes, and that is the end of the story. So in our story, we'll add Deccan riots to the whole list. We don't know of any specific leadership here. It is the peasant. The issue is rent increase and exploitation, cotton peasants, exploitation by money lenders, and the outcome will be very straightforward, which is Deccan Agriculturalist Relief Act 1879, and thereafter it will phase out. Social boycott is there in Indigo also, in this also. They should have revolted against British government because they did not get the price. Because the peasant does not know how to rebel against the British government. They know how to rebel the people who are in front of them. So what happened to the people? Thought our landlord planters kings were bad and the company was good, saving them. But that as it is, they will Tanishtha, they will pay the price of that understanding very soon. As it is, they were discarded by the British very quickly. Now, with this we finish peasant revolts. With this we finish peasant revolts. And what is left is basically tribal. Now, before I go to tribal, these takes place after, yes, after and before. It's not specific. These are peasant revolts other than the revolt of 1857. They have no connection to revolt of 1857, but I'm discussing them because they are coming under the larger category of peasant revolts. Yesterday we did 11 or 12 organizations, or rather rebellions, and we've done 4 today. Anybody has any issue in this? I've today basically made notes for you, so don't have to worry about that. Right? All details are important. Chart is enough. You don't even need a chart. Whatever I've made for you is enough. Okay. No political party exists at this point of time, which is a pan-Indian, which we will discuss. Okay. Now, are we all on the same page? Yes or no? Okay. He's the same MG Rande. There is only one Justice MG Rande in history. Now, we move to tribal revolts. And under tribal revolts, what I've already done for you is very straightforward. I've made these boxes for you. The ones which we have to discuss specifically, I have them separately. We'll discuss them. Kol, Santhal, Munda, we will discuss separately. And Chuar, others are already in the boxes. Now, there may be in the northeast based revolts, which is frontier regions revolt, there may be mismatch of leadership, or it may also reflect a certain differentiation, as Mehak pointed out previously. But this is based on the accepted, what we call as standard sources. You may know more than what this box is telling you. And if there's a mains question, which is quite unlikely from this area when it comes to revolts and the names, but you can use it if you know the better terminology or the better word or the better leader. That is totally your call. But that will mostly be very rarely, because here you would have to match it. So why some have been given separately? Because that is mainland India and this is northeast sector. So from Ahom to Khasi to Singapore to Cookies, this is all the rebellions in the northeastern sector. What we have to do is we have to understand four important concept and then characteristics and how did the British respond. If we can cover this portion, then your pain is over and we start 1857 as soon as possible. So I have done the job which you don't want to do already, so you don't have to worry about tribal revolts for sure. So if I have your permission with regards to, you know what to do with this, just keep this in front of you, learn one each day, your job will be done. Your job will be done. Can I now discuss tribal revolts, their characteristics, why they failed, and what is the British response? The task which should have been done by you, I have done it for you already. So except for socialist reform movement, I'm not asking you to make boxes or anything else. Now, tribal movement, there are three ways in which the tribals got disturbed by the British. First is that British expansion into tribal areas led to direct conflict. For example, in the Manipur sector, or in the Ahom, which is Assam sector, or even in the Garo Khasi Jaintia hills, when they entered, there was direct conflict. The second way in which the British basically created issues for the tribals is that the tribal areas which were previously not touched by anyone, the British will allocate zamindars or landlords land in that area, and that would lead to landlord based exploitation. This is the story of most of Chota Nagpur plateau, which is Jharkhand, Bihar, Orissa sector, Chota Nagpur plateau. This is the issue. People did not used to touch tribal land or tribal resources. But the British came and said that you zamindar, you have been allocated a land in Chota Nagpur plateau. So now the zamindar itself is greedy. He will go there, he will take the British help to subdue the tribals, and now landlord based exploitation is there. And the third is that if there's landlord based exploitation, money lenders, outsiders, and the British agents made tribal life difficult and destroyed their traditions. So either it is direct conflict, or it is colonial policy, or it is moneylenders, or it is landlords or zamindars. They were basically very conscious of the fact that their customary and old rights were taken away. So very simply, True Kanchana, tribal exploitation is based on British policy. revenue settlements being introduced into tribal areas. The British literally destroyed our forests also, which is the demand for wood and timber was quite a lot. Forest Acts come under this only. I'm coming to that. This is Forest Acts. The way the British also destroyed our tribal areas and most of our forests is that today you would have heard that in Uttarakhand and in Himachal Pradesh there are multiple instances of wildfires. The reason why there is so much wildfire in that area is because the British changed the whole species of forests which was there, because they wanted a specific type of tree for timber. What is that forest type which they have now introduced, or the British introduced in this Uttarakhand and Himachal sector? It's not sal. It's not sal. It's a very specific thing, very specific tree. Not tea, not teak, not eucalyptus. Have you heard about something called chirpine? Chirpine forests. Chirpine forests, pine trees are basically very good for furniture. But the problem is chirpine, the discarded pine, and the way the leaves fall on the ground and become very dry, it is very prone to catching fire. Very, very prone to catching fire. And with any human error, any major fire can start. This was done by the British only. Proper deforestation of this area and growing chirpine forests. Used for the paper industry also. Thereafter, it was the Indian Forest Acts which became a problem. They come under colonial policy. Chirpine is good for furniture and paper production. Colonial policy, the Indian Forest Acts of 1878 and thereafter. See, if you have a forest, it is a community resource or it is a private property? It is a community resource or a private property? It's a community resource. And tribals who used to live within the forests never saw it as private property. However, what these Forest Acts did was they designated forest as reserve forest, which is that human movement into these reserve forests is not allowed. And therefore, what happens is that the communities which had been living for centuries in certain forested areas, specifically in the northeast, they will be removed from that, saying that this is a reserve forest and only the British has the right to enter and exit. They control all the areas. They control all the areas. Over and above that, we know that Christian missionary activities in tribal areas, because tribals are not basically Hinduistic, they have their own religious understanding. They will be converted to Christianity, and a lot of people again in the Chota Nagpur plateau, in the whole forest belt of India, there will be multiple conversion moments via the Christian missionaries. The whole in the majority of the Christian community or the Christian population in the northeast is the missionaries converting them. And they had their own very sacred religion, which was taken away from them. Money lenders, zamindars, policemen, government agents, that is the tip of the iceberg. This is much, much, much more engrossed into how we saw the British destroy most of the culture in India. So the tribals suffered under multiple accounts, and the way they responded is also the way peasants responded, which is rebel. Now you don't have to, I will not discuss, I obviously have made this for you. I have to discuss four out of this which is important. You have to learn the names and you have to know the areas in which they're operating. All given basic ideas are here. The point is there's a certain way in which they responded, which is there are two rebellions which are quite unique. We all follow what we're doing till this point, no issues. Can I discuss the 3 to 4 important things here? Conserve forest and reserve forest is today's concept, not at that point of time. Yes, in a way, Mehek, yes. Okay, now that's a very good understanding. Okay, now see, most of these rebellions are localized, and it's against an agent, which is zamindars, the colonial forest policy, or be it the concept of the whole Indian Forest Service was created for this only by the British, so as to manage the tribal land in that regard. But the point is that the whole of this area was based on a certain understanding of the localized issues. So zamindar, this, that. But Santhal and Munda uprising and most of the northeast uprisings, when it comes to direct interaction, did see through the local issues, which is that Santals and Munda did not rebel against any agent, they rebelled against the English. They saw that it is not the zamindars who are the problem, they saw the white man as the problem there. But the strength of these tribal movements is also their weakness. The strength of these movements is tribal identity, and tribal issues. But this is also their weakness. Weakness because if the Mundas are fighting, they will not come up with Santhals. There will be no collaboration because they see each other in a separate fashion. Their strength is that all the Munda community comes together, but they then become isolated to other tribals. And tribal cooperation or tribe cooperation is something which you cannot expect at this point of time. So Munda or Santhal, they are rebelling amongst themselves, but they are not collaborating. See, tribal movements are localized and have no connection to each other. And what was needed was a more connected form of response, which did not come only. So understand this point, that the strength of these tribal movements is also their weakness. That the whole tribe will rise, but only that tribe is rising. There's no pan-Indian or even regional coordination. And the localized issue, if they get resolved, they also become subdued. This is not just true for the tribals, it is also true for the peasant revolts, but it is more pronounced here. And even when they rebelled, the initial rebellion may have caught the British off guard. But when the British mobilized their military, was there any chance that these tribals would win against proper military technology and military equipment? That is the point. Not really. Because the guns and the modern equipment crushed and in certain cases destroyed tribal communities fully. So the problem here is very straightforward. That if they are cognizant of colonialism, they don't have any means to spread that understanding. So maybe there's early nationalism amongst them, but the problem is that is not directed in the right direction. There's also an issue of language. The tribals could be speaking different languages itself. But even if that is not the case is that they would never come together only. There's a fundamental difference between tribes coming together and collaborating. And we have been witnessed till today, in the past 6 to 7 months, and maybe a year for some of us as Indians, how tribes fighting, are still fighting. Those issues still remain. The whole Manipur issue is based on intertribal violence, though that would be a very simplistic way of saying it. And in no way it is that easy. But the core issue remains tribal identity. So my argument is very straightforward. Their strength is their weakness. However, they were at least some of these rebellions were able to realize that the British is the problem. So there is growing nationalistic understanding that okay, it is the British which is the problem. So when we talk about, for example, the coal uprising, it will be under Budo Bhagat, and it will be against moneylenders and landlords. So this is an example of limited understanding. That is also true, Kanchana. I know that it is a much more complex issue than that. And the fact is, thousands of coal population perished when the British reimposed their control over it. The Santhal uprising, one of the greatest, along with the Munda uprising, wherein Sidhu and Kanhu Murmu were the ones who led 10,000 Santhals to declare rebellion against British. This is the difference. They will do it 2 years before the 1857 revolt. And their understanding was very straight. Yes, it is an economic rebellion. It is against moneylenders and the protectorates. But they did understand that the moneylender has been created by British authorities. And basically, the British would have to use troops, even army, to basically quench the rebellion. But what is interesting about Santhal is that the British were fully caught off guard. First 3 battles, the tribals with their what we call as primitive machinery or primitive weapons were able to dominate the British initially. However, once the British mobilized their military strength, there was no chance that they were obviously going to respond. The same way, this is a very interesting episode, because the cognizance is coming that it is not just the moneylender, it is the British. So they will be able to suppress, they will not be able to suppress the revolt initially. The initial 2-3 battles, small contingents were sent, and the Santhals basically killed most of the officers. And when the law and order situation became extremely bad, they started to use local zamindars and even the Nawabs to help assess the Santhal rebellion. And once the British will introduce the military, both these leaders will be caught and will be martyred. The Munda uprising also shows the same type of understanding. And here you have the most celebrated of all leaders, Bhagwan Birsa Munda or Birsa Munda, who rebelled in the area of Ranchi in 1899-1900 period. And he was very clear. He was that I am not rebelling against a moneylender or a person. I am rebelling against the British, and I will establish my own Raj, the Munda Raj. So he already disliked the moneylenders and the zamindars, but he also disliked the British more than anything. He said, I am not going to let the British dominate in the Chota Nagpur plateau. And the Munda uprising was one of the major uprisings which the British struggled to control also. And he had a legendary image amongst the Munda people, and that was one of the characteristics when it comes to the leadership of these rebellions. The leaders are considered have been claimed to be and have been considered as godlike personalities. But again, the British will capture Bisamunda and use the military to quench the rebellion itself. The Chuar uprising, which now we call the freedom struggle of the Jungle Mahal because of the word Chuar having a derogatory connotation. This was under Durjan Singh, and he again rebels against the zamindars who had displaced or were displaced by the British. So Durjan Singh himself was a zamindar. He will bring the tribals amongst himself. He will get a little bit of a following, and he will rebel against the British. Same issues, economic exploitation. British will use a very heavy hand and quench it. Thereafter, this would be the first set which is in mainland India. What I have to discuss with you is the characteristics. Once we're done with characteristics and how the British managed these things, we take a break. Santhal community still exists, Munda community still exists. Why not? Can we discuss the characteristics? Characteristics, weakness, British response, break. Yes. So whatever I had to give you a little bit of context and detail I've given you, other I've already put it into a box for you. Right? Can we be clear about this? I have literally given you boxes so that you don't have to go anywhere and generally look for anything. Everything has been given to you in the PPT itself. This PPT is going to become important in that way. Now, what are the characteristics of the tribal revolts? This is important because there can be a direct mains question in from this area. And that is why I've given it to you in a very elaborate way, so you don't have to look for anything. Now, Meg, there was, but it was very localized, very, very localized. British very quickly took apart that. Now, I told you that the first most important characteristic is the fact that the tribal identity was the binding force or the glue which brought everybody together. This is the strength, but is also the weakness. Mega, that has been a title given to him by his followers. Now, these identities united them to fight against outsiders, but not everybody who came inside was seen as an enemy, only specifically the British and their agents. Tribal economy had been destroyed by the British, and that is one of the biggest grievances which they had. And the anger against moneylenders and traders was also a principal concept which drove the tribes into rebelling. One more thing was that the common cause over and above all of this could also be colonial government laws destroying the traditional framework, specifically the Forest Acts. And they had Messiah-like figures, God-like figures leading them, and they were seen to be very, very important in their way of mobilization. And their way of mobilization in that regard was also in a way of saying that God had given them the power to rise against the British. So their mobilization has a little bit of a social connotation. Now, sometimes in certain cases, these leaders have also claimed to have magical powers and godlike powers, and wherein they will argue that even the bullets would not hit them. But the point is that if I look at the whole concept, localized, isolated, and lacked the feeling of nationalism, it was violent, very frequent, spontaneous, but they did not know what to do after a point. So even after you establish something, then what? Then what? That is the problem. What do you do with a small area controlled by you? Because everything else beyond you is with the British. So there's no proper planning and understanding of what to do once the British has been removed. That we'll discuss with regards to 1857 also. And the local agrarian order had already been disrupted. Maybe if the agrarian order had not been disrupted, they would not have got affected. The spontaneous nature is something which makes them more problematic, because they, again I said, within 1 minute did something, then they did not know what to do with it. So I have given you these points in point-wise form. If you will write them in the examination, half of them also, your 150, 250 word answer will be done. So you just have to write them down in the examination in this way. Same way, their weakness comes out of the unequal relationship when it comes to tribal and the British forces, primitive and modern weapons of the British and the primitive weapons of the tribals. And this in turn meant that they did not have really no resistance after a point. Initial rebellion may have been there, but after that, nobody knows, nothing. Now, weakness, as I told you, comes out of this. This again can be a mains question direct. How we had a section on characteristics, localized, isolated, had no connection with the mainland sector, and we were not able to sustain themselves for long period of time. That is first. In exam, we have to write, and see, these points you can write in your own language and your work will be done. I have given you 11 to 12 points with regards to characteristics. Same way I will give it for weakness. You just have to write them in your own language. Rather, see, I could have easily asked you to read this section. I would have given you basic ideas. But I've made these points in the PPT because here you can trust the PPT and go in the examination. So please understand this point, that these things you would have to look around for, or for multiple books. PPTs are in themselves complete. So for main section, it comes to weakness or comes to characteristics, just learn these points and your work is done. Thereafter, the movements were mostly conservative and traditional because they wanted to establish an old order. They are based on local grievances. That is the biggest issue. Had no long-term vision, and very simply, once the British also, in a way, satisfied the demands of these tribals, they stopped the rebellion also. Movements were not that revolutionary in their goal, did not provide an alternative solution to the British itself, and warfare strategy was very, very primitive. So you can see everything which I told you as a characteristic is also exactly like the weakness. So if you learn the weakness or you learn the characteristic, it becomes a weakness also. Local grievance means local issues. Now, till this point, you have to learn. Till this point, you have to learn two things. I'm telling you to learn: characteristic and weakness. Can you do that? Can you do that? Yes? Just 5 more minutes and this will be over. Now, what I want you to do now is, for 2 minutes, just see what I'm telling you. Don't have to learn it. Because in the Indian Constitution, there's something called the concept of scheduled areas. You would know under 5th and 6th schedule, there are certain areas which are safeguarded by the Constitution, in which the president and the governor have the absolute power, or discretionary power is very high when it comes to application of certain things. Now the point is, Article 340, 341, 5th, 6th schedule, all of these things. Barsa, you have to go through the previous classes because we have moved 11 classes forward. Now, the point is, where does this idea of scheduled area comes from? And the answer is, the British gave it to us. The British gave it to us. What do I mean by that? See, the British initial interaction was, we need to push forward into tribal areas. But when they realized that the tribal areas were only rich in forest produce and the tribals were responding very harshly, they will now start to follow the concept of core and periphery. which is that we will not touch the tribals in the core area. We will only deal around in the periphery in that regard, which is basically the concept of isolationism, which is that you have a scheduled area in which the people can't do anything. Outside that, you have the presence of the British. This strategy was developed by the British over a period of time. That is called the remedial measures, wherein they will develop the policy of non-interference. They will say, we can't fight with every tribe which is there in India. So rather, let's do one thing. Let us designate zones in which we will not try to push into them. And the idea comes with the first, which is called the Government of India Act 1870. In this, the Governor General in Council was given powers to have this concept of special areas in which the regulatory mechanism was directly under the Governor General, and he could take a call what to do with regards to that. Thereafter, there comes the next act 4 years after, which is called Scheduled Districts Act 1874. Again, I'm telling you, this is only for your understanding. I'm trying to add to your political understanding or polity understanding. Where does that concept come from? What you know in polity is enough for the scheduled areas and the concept of scheduled tribes. I'm just telling you what is the origin of it. It is me value addition into the chapter. Now, Scheduled Districts Act is the first time wherein districts could be given as the concept of scheduled districts. This word scheduled itself was developed by the British, wherein we will not let anybody enter, and basically they were creating pockets wherein tribals could stay. If they come out, they would be under British jurisdiction. If they are within it, they are within their own zone. This will be taken further under the Montagu-Chelmsford reforms, which is Government of India Act 1919. You have the concept of backward tracts. And now, two concepts: wholly excluded area, modified excluded area. Meaning core area which you do not go into, no, and modified excluded area. So wholly excluded area, no power to make law. And the Governor General will make sure that the wholly excluded areas are not. They called it backward because they believed that it was tribal zones. And their understanding is that the tribals are backward, which is technically not true, but that is the idea. So the scheduled area concept is designate everything. This whole area is scheduled area. But within scheduled area, they also had the concept of wholly excluded, not wholly excluded. And this was to basically administer the area in a better way. Thereafter, in the Government of India Act 1935, the words change: excluded, partially excluded. And then the governor has been given the power, which precedence we take in our government, in our what we call as constitution. Because the Government of India Act 1935 is the mini constitution on which the constitution is based, they pick up this idea from here, wherein the way concept of inner line permit, the concept of excluded and not the core areas and periphery areas, the concept of scheduled areas, the concept of fifth and sixth schedule, all have been picked up from this concept itself. And with this, your pain is over, and we now reach the halfway point and we start a very important module. So, firstly, thank you. You've been patient. I told you last two modules which are problematic. After this, all the factual is over. And if you've survived till this point, pat on back that you have. Don't be scared of history because of four modules, which is wars and this social justice reform movement and tribal and peasant. Other than that, from this point forward, this will become very interesting. And I have multiple stories to tell you in what happened in Delhi, what happened in Kanpur as a way of examples. But first thing we will discuss is cause, and then we'll discuss course, and then we'll discuss implications or significance. And therein I have to have an understanding with you wherein what is the concept of revolt of 1857? Should it be called a mutiny? Should it be called a revolt? Should it be called a rebellion? Or should we call a what we call as freedom or war of independence? These are 3 to 4 different things which have been designated to the revolt of 1857. Now, survived, alive, breathing, thoda dharashayi hue, you have wounds, They will heal. Now you can trust modern India and you don't have to worry about it. We have gone through the most painful area. It is over. So the pain is over. Now I give you a break here. You deserve 15 minutes, so I give it to you till 6:45. And thereafter, I want you to now wash your face a little bit and just now be attentive. This was basically sitting like in the movie where you don't like the movie itself. It's over. So we now start after this, the most important module out of which mains questions are made, which is revolt of 1857. I'll give you that 1 minute back. No forms of drain of wealth. Okay. Take 2 minutes. Okay. See you. Welcome back. Acts were made start in, I don't know, Lakshmi, what do you mean by that? Okay, now everybody's all refreshed, comfortable, all good, no issues, alive. Can we start? Course is actually not important, Ankita. That is the point. We'll discuss that. What comes in the examination is cause and significance. Cause and significance. Now, Pratik will talk about that. First, pay attention. Now, I think everybody in class would have some idea about the revolt of 1857 for sure. Give me everything we will discuss. Why it is in North India, why it is not in North India. Everybody knows about revolt of 1857. We'll discuss the nature, spread, everything we will discuss. Don't worry about that. First, tell me, why did it happen? Why did revolt of 1857 happen? School level understanding, what have you heard, read? For independence, caste markers, okay. Thereafter, doctrine of lapse, discrimination, too much oppression. Meat gun means you want to say greased cartridge. Greased cartridge, rifle, bullet, greased cartridge, gunpowder, get rid of British rule. Yes. Greased cartridge. Liberalism, religious sentiment, oppression, doctrine of lapse, subsidiary alliance, economic exploitation. I've heard troops for some ammunition, pig beef coating. What do you mean is greased cartridge? Oppressive policy for independence, gun remove for independence. First time India started, the Mangal Pandey, very good. Dalhousie, involved in social reform. Okay. If I go with it, if I go with what you say, Gandhiji Satyagraha, please don't say that. Gandhiji is not alive. He's 1869 born. After 1869, you want to take his name, you take his name. Before that, don't say Gandhi, Nehru. Please don't say that. Barakpur permanent settlement. Mangal Pandey. Very good. Mangal Pandey. Okay. So you all fall under three basic categories: religion, grease cartridge, or oppression. Right? These three basic things. More or less. Or doctrine of lapse. You'll talk about doctrine of lapse. Basically, Rani Lakshmi Bai, and Victoria's proclamation is afterward, not it before. And it's a mutiny, right? It's a mutiny that the troops rebelled, and it became a revolt, or what we call as the mutiny of 1857 or 1857 mutiny. See, whatever what you're saying, 1857, whatever you're saying, the problem is what you are saying is what the British want us to think. See, I'll talk about Sepoy mutiny. Very good. I will tell you the causes of the revolt of 57, but I want to basically talk about something very critical here. Bone dust, grease cartridge, this and that. There are three things which you need to automatically understand. First is that the British want you to think it is called the Sepoy mutiny or revolt of 1857 is not the word which they used. They always used to call it mutiny of 1857, 1857 mutiny. A lot of historians, a lot of non-historians, a lot of pretending historians will also use that term, which is mutiny, mutiny, mutiny. I will tell you the difference. First, listen to me. Now, most of your comments revolve around grease cartridge or the issue of Rani Lakshmi Bai or Nana Sahib or Bahadur Zafar, basically doctrine of lapse you're talking about, or you're talking about grease cartridge, racial discrimination, this and that. Sure, big terms you're using without knowing what is the connotation of that, but sure. And some of you are trying to be smart, political, religious, economic, that is also fine. Okay. See, what I want to say to you is that the first history of the revolt was written by a person called J.W.K. J.W.K. and a person called Malleson. Unfortunately, even if you go today to Labasna, you will find this book in the library of Labasna, which is called K and Malleson. And the book name is 1857 Mutiny. And see, the British want you to think that it is a mutiny, because that is called trivialization of 1857. Trivialization means to make something very small. So let's go with the logic which you are saying. So, land revenue destroyed peasants. We didn't revolt. We said that, okay, you take our peasants, you give us famine, you take our money, you take us everything. We don't want to revolt. But greased cartridge we will not take. You loot India, you destroy India, you have railways, you kill our men, you destroy India, but वो ठीक है, grease cartridge नहीं use करूंगा. So we draw the line at grease cartridge. This is the argument which you are giving me. That revolt of 1857 happened because of religious sentiment. So everything else was fine. You loot, you kill, you go and take the peasant, you do indigo, you take everything. वो सब ठीक है. Cartridge नहीं use करूंगा. I will never use that cartridge. This is called trivialization. What you are saying, that the Royal Enfield rifle came with a new cartridge which basically had a wrapper which had to be bitten off, and that wrapper was made out of pig and cow meat or pig and cow fat. So therefore religious sentiments were hurt. So religious sentiments were hurt. So we were all okay about political, we were all okay about economic, we were all okay about, okay, our subcontinent is being destroyed, our tribals are being killed, our whole nation is being burnt, it is being looted. वो सब ठीक है, I don't care. But मैं cartridge नहीं use करूँ. I will not use that cartridge. That is where I draw the line. I don't draw the line before it. I don't draw the line after it. Cartridge I won't use. So basically, what Kay and Malleson or the British are trying to argue is that we are fools. We are so religiously sensitive that we fought over a cartridge. This is called trivialization. Which is that there are much bigger systemic issues in India against which 1857 happened, rather than just a grease cartridge. What I am trying to argue to you is that 1857 is not something which randomly one day we got up and said, no, everything is fine, cartridge nahi, we will not take cartridge. Bone you have made into atta, I will not use it. One random day, how can that be? World War is 1914. This is 1857. Again, don't try to think of the logic which you are giving me. Think of the logic which all of you gave me. That, okay, everything is fine. Religious point we will not accept. This is called, you are trying to demean the whole revolt itself. If you say, for example, if you say that it is a mutiny, then what you basically want to say is the peasantry were fine, the zamindars were fine, the women were fine, all varnas were fine, everybody was fine, but the soldiers were the problem. What is mutiny? Mutiny is The revolt of a military setup. So because my religious sentiment was hurt, I, a irrational Indian, revolted. This is called the J and Mallison crap, or what we call the K and Mallison trap. Lot of our historians after independence also use this logic, but now we don't use this logic. Anytime somebody asks you what is the reason for the revolt of 1857, the reason is colonialism. It's not religion. It's not one cause. See, there's a sense of, try to understand this one. There's a sense of concept that there's an unprecedented nature in 1857. This is why you love this topic also. Yes, Indians will fight. That people say that nobody saw 1857 coming. 1857 is an unprecedented event in Indian history. But for the past 3 hours, I've been teaching you people who were rebelling before 1857. Then what are they doing? Revolt of 1857 is a culmination of a long tradition of resistance and not a spontaneous random event based on a greased cartridge. Greased cartridge may have been the last straw, immediate cause, but there are much more systemic issues in the way the British were ruling in India. And revolt of 1857 is a culmination of a long process of resistance which was happening since rebellions, peasant and tribal. Whatever I've taught you for the past 3 hours, that those rebellions represent a tradition which is building up to 1857. I have not talked about grease cartridge. Ramya, I will tell you what is grease cartridge. I am trying to tell you something totally different. I am telling you that there is a misnomer. You will find it in NCRT. You will find it standard books. Even Bipin Chandra will argue at one level that there will be, they said everything was perfect. We don't mind the looting. We don't mind Indian subcontinent getting destroyed. All of that is fine. All part and parcel of life. But grease cartridge is where I draw the line. See, the British want to argue that we are religiously very, very sensitive, which is technically not true. We are not that savages that we will respond on religion. We will not just say that, okay, social is fine, economics is fine, political is fine, religious is the problem. What I'm trying to argue to you is whatever you know about Revolt 87 is a politics of the British which we have absorbed. So 1857 cause is not some random cartridge. It is the impact of 100 plus or close to 100 years of colonialism. It is not a outburst. It is a culmination. It is not an outburst. It's a culmination. I will show you these points. I will make you these points. अरे cartridge पे फंसे हुए हो. I'm telling you something which you have to understand. I'll show you the cartridge. I will show you the gun also. I will do everything. I am, before starting this topic, telling you to remove your notions of what you know about it. Because a lot of you said one very dangerous line which you don't know what you mean by. You said independence. Okay. Independence of what and of whom? What? It was fought for independence. From whom? British. Okay. So Nana Sahib represented India, or Rani Lakshmibai represented India, Baja Zafar represented India, or Kunwar Singh represented India. Is there a notion of India? Is there a notion of India at this point of time? Are you getting the reason why I'm telling you that you have to stop thinking in those ideas? Independence from British colonialism. Okay. But then what? Acha, I revolted. I killed every Britisher in India. Then what? Then what? Tell me, then what? Every Britisher was killed. Then what? This is the problem. See, what your teacher told you, religion is the main cause. Oh, teacher, hai. You are a 6th or 12th class student. They can't talk nuance to you. But I can, right? See, what I'm trying to argue is very simply this point forward. Forget what you know about it. Because what you think Revolt of 1857 is, isn't. And what it is, you don't know. This is a important moment. But there's a difference between something being unprecedented, spontaneous, and something being a culmination of a whole process. Nationalism, as we call it, can it be qualified for Revolt 87 is something which we have to figure out, which we will figure together. So, Kay and Mallison unfortunately have dominated the narrative around the Revolt of 1857, and they have till today in 2023. Our first answer to Revolt of 87 is Mangal Pandey and the Barakpur mutiny and the Greece cartridge. But the answer should be that the cause of Revolt of 87 is the British being here and their general impact on the Indian subcontinent. So if you will allow me, I want to now discuss the causes with you with regards to why Revolt of 1857 happened. Again, yes, Himanshu, they are again justifying colonialism by arguing that this irrational Indian responded on a religious matter. That is the point. Okay. Now, when we talk about cause, now please pay attention, very significant. Course really doesn't matter who won where, what was the leader, everything is given in the PPT. But this is where theoretical knowledge is very, very, very important. Very, very important. Now, cause. When we talk about the causes of revolt of 1857, there are two basic heads in which we work. One is long-term systemic rather not use the word systemic only, long-term causes, and immediate causes. Long-term causes, political, economic, social, and religious. Immediate cause, you have military causes and Awadh, annexation. You want to add administrative? Sure. Now, what I want to do is I want to develop each one of them in front of you and then leave it to you to decide if it is just the military causes which can justify everything. Can I do that? Yes, I can. Okay. Now, please pay attention. All of these causes are embodied by the Sipahi or soldier, and that is why this military comes through. That is why the military comes through. Why only Awadh annexation? Patience. Good things come in sabr ka phal meetha hota hai, so have to wait a little bit. So I have to develop this concept in front of you. You have to do it. Now, that is why our focus remains on the Sipahi or soldier. because he embodies all of these ideas, and that is why military becomes the trigger point. Now, let's talk about political. I'll discuss the concept and we will then take out the conclusions of the concept. Now, the British followed. Now, pay attention. Stop typing, stop writing, pay attention. If you understand it, you will never forget it. Now, political causes are very standard. Either the British subordinated our rulers, or they took it through subsidiary alliance, or they took it through doctrine of lapse. Be it any means, which is direct conquest, or be it subsidiary alliance, or be it doctrine of lapse, The point is that the rulers got subjugated, and more than that, what the British is doing is that they are humiliating the rulers. So in one case, for example, to doctrine of lapse, not recognizing their sons as rulers. So in this category, for example, Rani Lakshmi Bai will come in. She is frustrated because her son is not recognized. You have Nana Sahib, who again is denied the power of the Marathas, whatever it may be. And there are multiple other rulers, even in the Carnatic sector. And the British are humiliating them because these rulers were known for grandeur. And now a white man comes and says to them, your son cannot be the ruler. If that was not enough, the ones which accepted the domination of British, their titles are being taken away. So they said that we will not call you Raja. You are Nana Sahib for us. Not Raja, nor Maharaja. You are all the same for us. So their titles, their power, everything has been taken away from them. And Bahadur Shah Zafar's eldest son had died, Fakhruddin. And with the death of Bahadur Shah Zafar's eldest son, the British more or less has said to Bahadur Shah Zafar, who's the last Mughal, that we will most probably not recognize your next son because he's an adopted son. So the conclusion of all of this story is very straightforward. Rulers are frustrated. They are humiliated. And they have their own personal reasons to hate the British and have a incentive, have not even incentive, have an intention to fight them. In the examination, you just have to link the points, which is through the direct conquest, subsidiary and doctrine of lapse, rulers were frustrated, humiliated, and personal reasons were there to have a hate towards the British and intention to fight them. The way I am explaining to you is quite elaborate. You have to just condense the points and put it in the exam. Now, I think political, nobody would have a problem. Which is the fact that Dalhousie started to refuse to accept and give titles to the rulers. He was even stopping pension. Nawab of Carnatic and even the Raja of Tanjore, their titles were cancelled. That you are not Nawab, you are not Raja. Nana Sahib, he basically got frustrated by the British because British said that we will not give you the pension which you should get under subsidiary alliance. When Fakhruddin, who's the son of Bahadur Zafar, died, they said that we will maybe or maybe not accept you as the emperor or your next ruler as the emperor. He's already 80 years old. So the expansion, subsidiary alliance, and the violence and the racism against these rulers was very clearly going to manifest itself in some form. So when, for example, Rani Lakshmi Bai is going to accept the leadership, Bahadur Zafar is going to accept the leadership, Nana Sahib is going to accept the leadership, as it is, Kumar Singh hated the British generally, be it any of these personalities, they have a personal motivation and a personal understanding to become a part of the revolt of 1857. So they did not come into the picture randomly. They were related to the larger picture of how the British were operating politically. So political causes are nothing but the frustration. Frustration is building up. They are becoming more. The pensions are stopping. So what's the point being under the British if you are not getting the money which the British was giving to you? And Dalhousie that way was very aggressive in implementing these things. Political, I don't think anybody has an issue. Political, no issue? No? No. Okay. Now comes economic. Rather, let's do religious. Social and religious. Social and religious. Now see, they have their own problem. That's the basic point. Now, things are very interesting here. See, everybody knew that the British was a Christian power. Everybody knows it. And missionaries started to come into India quite a lot after 1813 generally. But missionaries were also operating in India for a very long time. So it is not a new thing that the British, in a way, represent Christianity. But there's a perpetual fear which the British generated, which was actually not the British plan, or no British plan ever talked about converting the whole population of India into Christians. Britain and East India Company was least bothered about conversion. And the Crown also, and though this is basically the East India Company period only, East India Company had no plan to convert everybody in India. That is physically not possible. That was never the plan. There is no document. There is no understanding. There is nobody who wants to do it also. There's nobody. There's no larger plan that we will convert people by doing this and that. No. Bone dust, this, that. Nothing was British. Their purpose here is pure economical. They were just doing everything else. If you realized it, they were just doing everything else to mask that economic. However, every act which the British did instill a little bit of fear. So for the uncle, chacha, sitting on the chopal at a village, who is now sipping on his hookah, he doesn't have the nuance to understand drain of wealth, deindustrialization, peasant movement, this, that. No. He sees a white man and he says, something is fishy. This guy is going to convert me for sure. So this fear is a fear of culture. Now, there is an inherent fear of religious conversion by the people, by the people, but the actions of the British don't really add up to give any real confidence to the people. For example, in 1829, they abolish sati. They abolish sati. Now, to that chacha sitting at the chopal, does he really think sati abolition is a age old thing issue? We should solve it. It was a problem. It is something good which the British did. No. On a puff of hookah, he will say, कुछ तो चल रहा है, आज सती किया, कल कुछ और करेंगे. That today it was sati, tomorrow it will something else. So abolition of sati is a very good thing, but it adds fear and the anxiety. And I don't think this anxiety is misplaced. Is this anxiety irrational? Is this anxiety irrational? And the answer is very simply no. It's a standard fear. When you can be in my class right now anxious that will sir cover all the syllabus, will he tell us everything? Most probably he will leave something out and that will come in the examination. When you can be anxious about something which I am doing in class itself, this is still society and religion. So the fact is the fear and the anxiety, these things matter. These things matter. Now, move a step further, and 1813 and 1833 period, the East India Company allow the Christian missionaries to operate in India. And if that is not enough, in 1833, Europeans can buy land and operate in India. Now again, adds to it is not showing properly. 1 second. So let's do one thing now. Let's put it into chronological order itself. If it was not showing properly, I'll just change the chronological order, because I will start to get emails that how does 1829 come first before 1833. So let's solve that issue itself. Let's solve this issue. 1813, 1829, 1833. 1813, Christian missionaries allowed. Sati abolished. And Europeans can buy land. It is not just British, anybody can buy land and operate in India. It was still their plan to convert. You say it by their action. No, there is no plan for conversion. Of the mass conversion is a very big thing. These actions are not about conversion. They are about opening up avenue for certain groups. They add to the fear and anxiety of conversion. But the British had no plan of actually, understand this, the British are figuring out their way as they're going. So when they opened in 1813, they didn't say go Christian missionaries, convert everybody. Because I can be very clear in saying one thing to you. If the Europeans actually take it upon themselves to convert people, whole of Spain, Spain and Portugal converted whole of Latin America. Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay, Paraguay, all these countries were literally converted to Christianity. So if the British wanted to, they could have. But the point is that the British never had a plan. British are doing these things as a process of colonization, as a process of East India Company based economic interest. Sati abolition was a drama which they needed to do to justify their rule. So in a way, I'm bringing all the modules I've done with you in one moment itself. The whole point is I do 1857 in the middle because it is a culmination of all the processes which have been happening. Christian missionaries coming 1813 is not a concept of British plan to do anything. It's just because the lobby of the Christian missionaries were becoming powerful. They said, okay, go. And then 1829 and 33, British are acting in a certain way. They act in a certain way. So it's all about wheeling economic intentions. Are we all on the same page with regards to what is happening? Please remove this fear from yourself at least right now that there is something which is happening. Right? I hope you will understand this point. That at least you can be rest assured that because today I am a Hindu or you are a Sikh and you are a Muslim, you are that because the British did not actually properly try to do anything. They already feared religious rebellion quite a lot to do it. Can I now move anxious? Are we clear about this? Till this point, everyone? Yes? Come on, have to be clear, have to be more straightforward. Ritika, exam, I will tell you, not everything is about the exam. Pay attention. You will understand what to write in the exam automatically. Pay attention. I'm trying to explain something to you. Okay. Why British allow other European powers? Not other European powers. Irish, Scottish, Germans who have money, they can come and do things. Not every planter in Darjeeling was a Britisher. There were others also. It's not allowing other European powers, not asking the British French government to come here. Only European individuals. Now, till 1833, the fear and anxiety is there. It is natural. But something in 1850 will now make this fear even more, what we call as real. And that is called the Lex Loci Act. Lex Loci Act, 1850. Loci written like this also. It also has CI also. Lex Loci. This is the spelling you will find mostly in books. Lex Loci Act. Now what the Lex Loci Act is, before 1850, before this act, now for example, this is a plot of land and father is A. He has B, C, D as three sons. He has B, C, D as three sons. I'm audible, I'm visible. If anybody has issue, just refresh. Am I audible? Am I visible? Is there any issue in that? If you are facing any issue, refresh. Majority of you are, or 99% of you are saying no issue. If audible and visible, if there's an issue, refresh. Because Lex Loci, I don't want you to mess up. So everything is okay. Now, before this act, a father has three sons. This is son 1, son 2, son 3. B, C, D. Now, what happens is that a Christian missionary is able to convince D, and he's a Hindu. So all become Hindus. But D thinks that Christianity gives him more opportunity. So D converts to Christianity. And what happens is that now, before this act, If previously the land would get divided into the three sons, B, C, and D, now because he has converted to Christianity, the father can argue that D is still not my son, and he can basically remove him from inheritance and only divide it into two, B and C. B and C. So before Lex Loci, a son or what we call as a parent can remove his children from inheritance on conversion to certain religions. On conversion to certain religions, a parent can move, and specifically Christianity, he can remove him from inheritance. So in a way, D has lost inheritance because he has now converted to Christianity. Now, if you are a missionary, if you're a missionary, would you like this concept, or would the Christian lobby like this concept, and would it really allow the Christians to operate in India in that way? No, because then nobody would ever convert to Islam. Nobody would ever convert to Christianity, because then automatically you're disowned. So Lex Loci Act, which is also called Religious Disabilities Act, and it is not there to promote. It does not directly promote conversion, and the basic intention is to the restore the old rights. Lex Loci, the one who actually implemented it, named after him, Lex Loci said, on conversion to other religion, the children or child does not become non-eligible for inheritance. So, under law, now a child can take land which he was entitled to previously from the parent. So basically, under Lex Loci, now A has to give land to D. Now, for a lay person, for a layman, for the uncle, chacha sitting on the city center chopal, how does he look at this? How does he look at this? He will not care about the injustice. He will not care about the injustice which is happening to D. He will rather say, okay, now they have created the roadmap for conversion of everyone. But use your logic. If they wanted to convert everybody, then would this act be needed? If the father A also becomes Christian, then would this act actually be needed? This act is a grievance which the British got quite a lot from the people, and specifically from the Christian community, and they are trying to fix something which is broken. But this will exponentially increase. This will exponentially increase Lex Loci Act exponentially increases anxiety and fear. Anxiety and fear. So if you look at the social, in a way, every legislative intervention would be seen as a threat. Would be seen as a threat. So if they can abolish sati and they can give your son who is not entitled to land, they can do anything. But East India Company really doesn't care. But we know that they don't know it. That is the point you need to understand. That the British would argue that we are religiously very, very irrational. Technically not true. This fear is rational because of the actions which they were doing unintentionally. So please understand this point very clearly, that everything which happened religiously was not basically religious. It was based on a certain chain of events which is happening, which is leading to the rise in fear of conversion. The fear of conversion is not something which is actually something which should have been there, but the British were not very effective in managing that fear because of their actions. So when I talk about socio-religious, one second, the concept of threat of conversion is something which will get compounded over a period of time. The Religious Disabilities Act of 1850, or Lex Loci Act, the fact that it modified the custom that a person cannot be debarred from inheritance if his son converts. The rumors now started to spread that the people of India will be converted into Christianity. Then they will do the form of what we call as the Act 17 of Regulation 17 of 1829, which is Sati itself. They were taxing both Muslim and Hindu schools and institutions. And it is not a standard thing that the missionaries and the British were racially driven. So the point is, this is basically I this is basically the British doing something which is very dangerous, which is very simply, you would have heard in America during COVID-19, these dumb Americans came up with a theory that if you drink phenyl, you will kill COVID-19. There was a major controversy. Trump also said it, drink phenyl, inject phenyl into your body. If sanitizer can kill it can kill the bacteria and virus outside, inject sanitizers into your bloodstream. So basically, this is what the British were doing here. They were adding to something by doing something which they didn't intend to, which is that they were doing 1813, 1829, 1833, 1850 are isolated events. But we Indians are very good at connecting events. And we connected these events to say that now the takeoff point is going to come. The runway has been made. Now they will convert everyone. But that is technically not true. So can I now shift to economic? If you understand now, what we've come to a conclusion is politically, now see, politically, rulers are humiliated, they are frustrated, and they have their own individual issue, and in a way they hate the British, and there's an anger which is rising here. Now add to it social and religious, The people between 1810 and 1850 started to develop a fear of conversion which was based on British East India Company regulations as remedial measures or to mask their colonialism, to mask their colonialism, and this will create a fear of conversion in the people. Are we clear about these 2 points? Now, can you connect the dot that why would a cartridge which had a wrapper which was made of pig and cow fat basically be a trigger point? Because this fear will come out properly that moment. That okay, now this is the moment they will convert all of us. So that cartridge thing, that grease cartridge thing is not Mangal Pandey randomly waking up and saying that, okay, all cartridges are fine. I know you will not convert me, but this cartridge is a problem. Every mutineer, every Sipahi who mutinied, who rebelled, embodied a fear which was coming from his own existence at that point of time. It is his family telling him through messages that Lex Loci Act has come. It says that the law does not abide with the concept of not allowing somebody to take land. So now the fear counter starts to rise. Try to connect it that is why the Sipahi embodies all of these factors. Their beloved leaders have been humiliated. Their social and religious issues which they embody. If I add economic, it will become even more clear. Can I add economic? If I will not write cartridge in exam, you have to write cartridge in exam as an immediate cause. I'm coming to that. Don't hurry. I'm not asking you for solutions here. I'm just asking you to follow me. So don't give me the solution. I'll tell you what to do. Don't worry about that. Okay. Now, economic is the easiest to understand. Economic is the easiest. Land revenue, settlements, the peasant is under distress, landless labor, and there is a saying that the Sipahi or soldier was nothing but a peasant in uniform. Because as much as he is in army service, the family of the Sipahi is connected to the agrarian distress. So if the Sipahi is serving in Bengal and his family is starving in Bihar, can he basically not be or be isolated from that? That if every Sipahi either was a peasant who joined the British or he has a family who is doing agriculture, he would be impacted by the fact that land revenue settlement is destroying agriculture. Add to it commercialization, you will get famines. Add to it deindustrialization, you have unemployment and destruction of handicrafts. And basically, together all of these factors, सिपॉय सिपाही, सिपॉय is a way of English, सिपाही बोला नहीं गया तो सिपॉय बोल दिया. So they basically together there is an economic crisis, there's a panic, and there is distress. So if I bring political, economic, social together, political plus economic plus social, if I bring all of these together, then what I get is rulers hating, and rather rulers frustrated by the British develop hate, fear of conversion, and fear of people being made to accept Christianity, plus peasant distress and agrarian crisis. And if I add to this administrative, which would be corruption, racism, new institutions, and British understanding of laws. So if I talk about economic, high rate of taxation, commercialization, land revenue, foreign trade, deindustrialization, unemployment, and destruction of traditional fabric, and add to it the political, which is subsidiaries, doctrine of lapse, and the general humiliation. Add to it the rampant corruption, misgovernance, judicial system is too complex for anybody to understand, and natives are not part of the major system itself. I get with the social justice causes a recipe of disaster. A recipe of disaster. And that is what is basically happening here. All of these things are playing out in the Sipahi's mind. In the Sipahi, all of these things are coming together. All of these things are coming together. But I want to add one more point, which is that 1857 is not spontaneous. These fears, I can say that 1, 2, 3, 4, all 4 fears had been manifesting themselves in localized rebellions, revolts, and moments. Which is to say that 1857 is the culmination of a long tradition of hatred and resistance. Think of it like this. That you have a burner. Think of it like this. You have a burner, and this is the burner of colonialism. It's the burner of colonialism. And thereafter, you have kept a pressure cooker on it. And in this pressure cooker, you first add direct conquest, then add humiliation, then add fear of conversion, then add misgovernance, and then add what we call as the concept of uh, peasant distress, and then add localized rebellions. Localized rebellions. The difference is that these rebellions were coming out as little bit of steam. So the steam which is coming out are these rebellions. You have Rangpur, you have, for example, Santhal, you have Hunda, you have the concept of add anything, for example, Velu Thampi, you have Kuka. The city which you see is these moments of localized rebellions. These are called the traditions or moments of rebellion. But between 1765, this burner has been burning so much that by the time we come to 1857, now this pressure cooker is going to explode. Now this cooker is going to explode. And this explosion of this is called 1857. The explosion of this process is 1857. That basically not everything is isolated to each other. Now you get it that why am I doing, no, don't make this in the examination. Pressure cooker थोड़ा बना के आ जाओगे. नहीं, the point is you use it, you say it in a way that the pressure was building and the explosion moment is that. What I'm trying to argue here is everything which I've taught you in the past 11 classes is to explain this explosion. I cannot explain to you 1857 until and unless you don't realize what is the way British expanded. And I'll tell you what that explosion moment is. As soon as a small burner called greased cartridge was added, and one more small burner which is called Awadh annexation. These two made sure that now colonialism had become intolerant. So you tell me that without what is inside this pressure cooker, would these two burners make any sense? That is the point you need to understand, and the point I'm trying to make for a very long time now. That the point is that these are called immediate triggers. Immediate triggers. They are the tipping point. Now, if you understand why am I we talking about systemic causes, I have to discuss three more causes with you. Can I do that? Which is immediate, and the concept of a psychological change also which happened after 1850. The two burners blasted the pressure cooker. Maybe the pressure cooker would have burnt like this for at least 60-70 years more. But the addition of these two burners are going to be the immediate triggers which will basically blow up everything. It will blow up everything. So if you realize it, every module is building up to 1857. Advent of Europeans, expansion, socialist reform movement, economic, institutional and consolidation, tribal peasant, and economic history of the British Raj. Every module has been building up to this moment. Now, there is a major psychological shift also, which happens in the period between 1840 and 50. And that psychological shift is that Britain lost to a lot of powers in this period. In the Punjab wars, in the first Sikh war, there were 3 battles. And out of that, 2 were lost by the British. One was won. The Crimean War, which is a war which happens in Europe at this point of time, you will discuss this with me in world history, is Russia versus Britain and France. And Russia was able to defeat the British military in multiple sectors, though the Russians lost over a period of time. The Santhals showed that if it came to fighting with primitive weaponry, they can do it. So together, this showed that the British can be defeated. And this is a new feeling which has come up. This is a new feeling which has come up. Now, the point which you have to understand is 1857 is part of a revolt which was already happening. Revolt which was already happening. And 1857 is the culmination of it. 1857 was the culmination of it. Now, a very important point which you need to understand is that I want to show you a question. And just 1 second. It is related to history only. I'll write down that question for you 1 second. And then I'll ask you, can you answer it or not? 1 second. I'm writing down that question. One second. Yes, okay. 1 second. I'm copying and pasting that question into your chat box. I want you to see that question and understand what I'm talking about. 1 second. Yes. Now I'm just pushing it on your. I am doing it. Okay, there's a question which will be in front of you. The historical significance of tribal and peasant uprising in India lies in that they established strong and valuable tradition of resistance to British rule. Do you understand this question now? What it is trying to ask you? And what if I tell you that this is not a GS level question? This is a history optional question. Paper 2. This question will never come to you. But as a GS student, if you sit in history optional, can't you write this answer? That the significance of the peasant and tribal, this is this year's paper, 2023. This year it came. What I'm trying to show you is that this is a question which is optional level. You should not be able to do it. You should not be able to do it. But in a way you can. In a way you can. Meaning that the level I'm teaching you right now is beyond any book and beyond optional also. Why? Because I want you to conceptually understand one thing, which is that it is not that history changes at any level. It is about understanding the whole process. The 150 words about this can be written in one go. This is a previous year of history optional 2023. If you basically write the basic points I've told you right now, that will be 150 words. It's not about you being able to write it or not. I'm trying to show you something, which is that the UPSC is thinking on the same lines. It is thinking on the same lines as what you understand right now. Because I can easily say grease cartridge. But this whole process I'm trying to explain to you is basically to show you that there is a understanding which is there within the UPSC, which is also aligning with how we are understanding something. That is why the optional paper shows that level of understanding. So understand this point that I am going to immediate causes. I'll move to immediate causes. But you need to also inculcate an understanding that sometimes things are more nuanced than what they look. More nuanced than what they actually look like. When if peasant tribals would revolt, why can't general masses? If they would serve fuel, made psychological impact. But that is the problem, Mehak. A pan-Indian movement needs leaders. And that leader is not there. Kritika, soon. Not right now, but soon. Sir, we have to write some important tribal. I see, doesn't matter what you write in that question. I'm trying to show you something. I'm trying to show you a certain understanding which the UPSC is also trying to understand. The psychological repercussions mean that between 1765 and 1840, the British won everything. But between 1840 to thereafter, there was a change in the understanding that, okay, the British can be defeated. Now, if this is clear, I want to discuss military causes and the immediate causes in it and the connection with Awadh. So you send the SNS has sent, can you provide guidance about psychological philosophy optional? Okay. Now let's talk about military causes. See, pre 1820s and 30s, the military has the following features. These are men and rather not women were never taken. Men who had joined the British Army in India as soldiers and lower level officers. Lower level officers. And the features is that army service was a family tradition in certain areas and was even hereditary. Hereditary means that the British said that if your father is in the army, you don't have to clear anything. You will also become part of the army automatically. Father to son, father to son, father to son is hereditary. Further, it is a very homogeneous army, as most of the recruitment of the Bengal regiment comes from Awadh, or Odh as it is written, from Awadh. And further, caste and varna markers and distinctions were allowed and followed, which is that Brahmins used to eat with Brahmins, Kshatriyas used to eat with Kshatriyas, the Vaishyas will eat with the Vaishyas. They have separation. You can wear your caste markers, you can wear your caste traditional dresses if needed. And this army is very homogeneous, meaning that they went to Awadh and every family in Awadh had one person in the army itself. So every neighbor, have been recruited, the next person is your neighbor. So that creates a cultural homogeneity. But caste markers and caste distinctions being followed is a very important thing for the people, because according to them, they are not being made to do something which is against their religion. And the army is like a homogeneous brotherhood. सब भाई है. Everybody is related to everyone. Everybody knows everyone, and everybody is sleeping separately. They have separate barracks and everything. This is followed till 1820s. Between 1765 and 1820s, this will be the way the British will recruit. This is based on recruitment practices, and also army rules and regulations were like that. And guess what would be the orientation of the officers who were involved in making these rules? What would be their ideological orientation? Their ideological orientation would be what? They would be perfect Orientalists. They would be Orientalists because they fear everything. So they don't want to basically do anything to anybody. So they said, whatever it may be, just recruit them and use them. Now, homogeneous structure of Bengal army, minimal British presence, high caste character, mostly from Awadh. Dalhousie said that it's a great brotherhood in which members are felt and act in unity. And the army service is also hereditary. Everything is perfect, everything is fine. However, after 1820, there are new general enlistment rules, which comes with utilitarian officers coming to India. British have not forced these people to join the army. They have joined it as a form of employment. In India, employment is an issue. So wherever you get employment, you take it. Now, 1820 onwards, there are new general enlistment rules. And now things will start to change, because does differentiation in training, caste markers, what we call as the concept of the presence in army, really embody army's interest or army's culture, that everybody will be treated separately or differently? The logic is utilitarian, yes. No, that is something which is considered problematic. In the army, every officer is the same to the army. Everybody has to be trained in the same way, and everybody has to be treated in the same way. If you cannot stay in the same area and you cannot be deployed in the same area, it makes no sense. And this idea will start two concepts: caste markers and distinctions will be removed. Everyone eats and sleeps in same barrack or housing. The homogeneity is not important now. Training and rules are strict. And now the British start to do something which they didn't previously. Enlisted men to travel abroad to fight for the British in Southeast Asia and Africa. And in India, there is a concept: Saat Samundar Par, you lose your caste. As soon as you cross water bodies, according to Brahmanical Hinduistic religion, as soon as you cross water bodies, you lose your caste. You lose your varna, you are impure. Gandhi, when he was leaving for London, was said the same thing from his community. And that is why when it came to Gandhi coming back, he did not come back to India. He went to South Africa because he knew that his people will never accept him. Same way, now this is going to be, now you see, these two things add to which cause? These two things add to which long-term cause? They're adding to the fear of conversion. That dekho ye, he's making me remove my caste markers. He making me go Sat Samundar Par. That means that, or I will cross water bodies, I will lose my caste. Basically, these two things will start to add to the fear of conversion. And for these services, they were going to get a bhatta. Bhatta means allowance, which was not given also. So now the British started to remove the caste and sectarian markers, beards and turbans, wanted to have what are called chaplains. Chaplains are church servants at their own cost, which is basically a presence of a missionary-based understanding. And the general enlistment rules in 1856 will require soldiers to work overseas. And based on it, the British previously had maintained all high caste character of the whole body, which is the Bengal army itself. Dietary and travel restrictions were respected under Hastings, obviously Orientalist. And there will be universalization of army culture after 1820. Now, it is in this context that there is a lot of friction which is developing in the military, wherein overseas deployment is the problem. Salary is already very, very less. They are not getting the bhatta they should get. The soldiers are given only inferior positions. They are racially discriminated. The Post Office Act, what it will do is it will increase the cost of sending letters. So they can't write to their families. Religious identities will now come to crisis. Regular humiliation used to already happen. And peasant in uniform is agrarian distress. Now, add to the military the second most important immediate trigger. Can I discuss the second most important trigger? Things went wrong after this. After which year? It's not specific. It's after 1830s. There's a fear and this anger is developing. Fear and get, yes, Lex Loki. See, now understand this point. Now for the peasant, everything is revolving around his head. That okay, Lex Loki, Sati abolished, my caste marker taken, sending me. Now he's connecting the dots. He's connecting the dots. That okay, Sati was abolished, then they said missionaries can come, then they said okay, Lex Loki, then they can, then they were telling us that the Europeans can buy property also, and now they are asking me to remove my caste markers, plus I am now also being asked to go overseas, and this all equals to I will be Christian very soon. This is a way, is this a way in which the Sipahi in a way is now embodying the fear of everyone. None of it is related to each other, but अब उसके दिमाग में से चल रहा है. It's revolving around. The day is going to come, the day is going to come, the day is going to come. And the day will come, and that is when Mangal Pandey will shoot someone. Now, can I talk about the second immediate cause where the peasant, the Sipahis will feel betrayed? Yeah, army, they will recruit. Everybody in India was a farmer. So everybody is a peasant in uniform only. There's no specific community which is there for that. Now, whilst there is fear and anger in the military, now late 1856 and late 1856 and early 1857, the British will annex Awadh under doctrine of lapse, clause mismanagement. Nothing was being mismanaged. It's just that Wajid Ali Shah wanted good for his people. The British obviously did not want that. Mismanagement. And Wajid Ali Shah will be removed. And the Bengal army will be used to remove Awadh control. And now you see, the Bengal army had helped in Carnatic. The Bengal army had helped in Mysore. The Bengal army had helped in Tanjore. The Bengal army had helped in Marathas. The Bengal army had helped in Sikhs. They had helped in Rajputana. But they thought that Awadh, which is our homeland, it is protected because hum to kaam kar rahe hain. The British will never do anything to our own homeland. And what has happened is the Awadh annexation is going to create a lot of anger, because as soon as Awadh will be annexed, permanent settlement will come. Because till this point, permanent settlement had not been applied. And once permanent settlement will come, who is dying of hunger now for the Sipahi? Who is dying of hunger now for the Sipahi? It is his family which is now dying. It is his family. Now you see, very beautiful. Rulers are angry. Peasant in distress. Fear of conversion. Misrule and management. Plus the concept of misrule and management. Along with that, psychological changes, tradition of resistance, Now, Sipahi represents these factors. Add to it immediate changes in military culture, caste, religion, which basically compounds the effect, plus Awadh annexation, which is killing own community and leaders, which is anger plus fear, and add to it a little bit of swad anusar, new rifle with a cartridge which has pig and cow fat, and the dish which we have produced is called Revolt of 1857. This is the Revolt of 1857. This is the Revolt of 1857, and this is the gun which you are obsessing about. This is a new Enfield rifle. Comes with this cartridge, and the concept of the cartridge is very simple. The bullet is inside here. So what you do is that if this is the gun, you can't see this only. If this is the gun, you can see the bottle at least. Yes, you can see here. This is the gun. You have to actually put the bullet from the top. You have to put the bullet from the top. So what you do is that you remove this wrapper. It has gunpowder. You push it into this, then put the bullet inside it. There's no loading from here. So you chew the wrapper, because if you are holding a gun like this, or rather, this is better. If you're holding a gun like this, your one hand has the gun, and by the other hand, you have to push it down. So you have no other option but to remove the cartridge, chew it off, put the bullet, and then push it down. Chew it, put the gunpowder, push the bullet down, and then keep it and shoot it. But the point is that these Britishers, they don't care about beef and pig because they're Christians. But when it came to making the wrapper, this is the original bullet itself. This wrapper is made out of cow and pig fat mixture. It's not paper. It preserves the gunpowders or protects the gunpowder from moisture. And very simply, now all of this, and in the Barakpur regiment, this gun will be introduced first. And as I said, annexation of Awadh was a major point of discontent. Bengal army came from Awadh itself. They were affected. Talukdar lost all of their estates. Their people started to get killed, and they were now under permanent settlement. That will create panic and anger. What I mean to say is that this is only a trigger. This is only a trigger. You can't open by hand, chew it. Is it hard? Obviously, it is hard. It has gunpowder. The point doesn't really matter. Don't you get it? If this was not made out of pig and meat or anything, it would still have led to an outburst. What I've been trying to tell you, this greased cartridge is a circumstantial point. This was the last nail in the coffin. All factors before it have nothing to do with religion or nothing to do with cartridges. The fact that Mangal Pandey will shoot his officer for not using this gun in Barakpur will trigger a moment in which Mangal Pandey basically shot a person, in which one, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 processes made him pull the trigger. Not what the British would say that हमें तो इससे problem ही नहीं है. We have no issues before it. It's just this grease cartridge which is the problem. Please understand this point. It is immaterial what that wrapper was made out of. This gun, ये तो बहाना है. This is an excuse for an outburst. The outburst was coming sooner or later for sure. In 1806, in South, they had already done it in Vellore. That is why South did not respond, because they had already done it. Once Mangal Pandey will shoot the officer, his compatriots will shoot other officers, but thereafter the British will take control and everybody will be shot. It is not Barakpur where the revolt of 1857 starts. That's the trigger. It is Meerut where everything starts. Meerut to Delhi, then to Bareilly, then independently in Kanpur, then in Awadh, then in Jagdishpur, then in Jhansi, thereafter in certain parts of Gwalior, and thereafter all of these will become what are called as theaters. I call themselves theaters. I call these as theaters because they're not connected to each other except for Delhi, Meerut and Bareilly. Awadh was separate. Kanpur was separate. Jagdishpur was separate. The Awadh, the whole the Lucknow was separate, and all of them separately were doing it. There's a convergence. The point is, the simple point is, I have pushed in close to now 2 hours of understanding about the causes of the revolt of 1857. The cause of revolt of 1857 is not something which is based on grease cartridges. It is rather based on a whole concept of a long-term grievance with multiple immediate triggers. This is the first immediate trigger, this is the second immediate trigger, and this is the third immediate trigger. Mutiny was never pre-planned. The nature of the mutiny we'll discuss tomorrow. What I want you to do is that you sleep on this, thinking what I've told you, unlearning what your school teachers have told you, unlearning what these random YouTubers have told you, or the WhatsApp University has told you. There is much more to this story than actually just a small standard concept of grease cartridges. 1857 is a culmination of a long drawn process of struggle, and it is the reason why 1857 happened was colonialism. Remember this figure and you will understand what I mean to say. I hope now this image will basically in a way summarize everything for you. This is what I mean by revolt of 1857. Everything in this pressure cooker will come out, and that is why the grease cartridge and the Awadh annexation are very important. According to the British, they will say that the only reason why, now you can say K and Mallison will say the only reason why the people, these mutineers mutinied because they did not want to chew pig and cow. But did Mangal Pandey only shoot because he had to shoot because he had to chew off a wrapper? That is called trivialization. You trivialize. If you only look at any one burner, you will think of it like a trivial point. Trivialization means isko chota bana dena. The revolt was not in a way inevitable, but was building up for sure. Triggers were there everywhere, and it was a coincidence of all these things coming together. Maybe the trigger could have been something else, but the point is that grease cartridge is a trigger, not a cause. There's a difference between that. Bengal army is angry about Awadh annexation because they are now annexing their own home country and their own people. The British is asking to shoot their own leaders and their own people. So why they didn't use any other object? Now please understand this point. In a way, can you call the British dumb also? Can you actually call the British also dumb? Because the British were blind to all these concepts. They were blind to all of these issues. They were dumb to do something like the Enfield rifle. Enfield rifle, if it was not introduced, maybe 1857 could have got delayed. The British, in a way, they're in their dumbness and their obliviousness of, this is the Oriental obliviousness, that rebellion तो हो ही नहीं सकता, हमने तो कुछ टच किया ही नहीं. So Hastings would say, William Jones will say, no rebellion, can't be rebellion, we didn't do anything only. But they are not understanding that colonialism is taking its toll. So the British can't accept that the causes are their presence. They want to say, hey, the Indian irrational है, इसको मैंने बोल दिया chew करने को तो ये मेरे को गोली मार दिया. That this person killed me because he asked me to chew a wrapper and that is why he shot me. Think how the British is trying to play out this point. That this soldier killed me because I asked him to chew a wrapper. But is it that is the reason why he shot you? You deserve that bullet 10-15 years back only. So understand this point. In a way, 1857 is called a failure of the British also. That is why the Crown will say, we can't let the East India Company be here. We can't have the company be here, because if we leave it to the company, this is what is going to happen. This is what is going to happen. And if we leave it to the company, this is what is going to happen, because they were blind to these issues. Raj, I'm giving you the English translation of that also, so pay attention to that. Trivial point again. Doesn't matter, but okay. The point which I'm trying to argue here is 1857 is not a random moment in which Indians woke up and said, now let's rebel. I'm in a mood to rebel today. 11th May 1857, let's now rebel. No. It's a long dawn process. Done? Awadh is not part of Bengal. It's a successor state, which you know. See you tomorrow. We discuss the theaters. We finish 1857 and we discuss Government of India Act 1858. Perfect. Sir, the question is asking about how tribal revolts are successful in causing. No, in a way, Arani is asking how they are part of a larger tradition of resistance which is related to 1857. Done? Okay. So I will see you tomorrow, same time. Course is going to be discussed, and thereafter we will talk about course, significance, nature, and Victoria's proclamation, Queen's proclamation rather, and the Government of India Act 1858. Okay. We'll discuss that, Pratik. It's not a war of independence, that is for sure. Okay. See you.